In today's video, I'm going to show you how you can insulate your 16-foot garage door for under $100 to keep it a little warmer for you while you're in there working. Hey guys, welcome back. If you're a first-time viewer, my name's Dean. Welcome to my channel. All right, it is that time of year that it is starting to get cold. It's first thing in the morning here. It's just a little over 40 degrees in my shop. I just fired up my wood-burning stove, so we'll start getting it warmed up in here. Now, for those of y'all that have been following my channel for a while, you'll remember videos like this. Yeah, where I was in my garage, sweatpants, sweatshirt, had a heater going, and I'm still having to use a heat gun or a blowtorch to try to heat up the paint to keep it from sagging because it was so cold in there. Now, that was just a small 2-car garage with a 16-foot metal door. And yeah, it had crossed my mind many times to insulate that garage door. It'd probably help, but I didn't think it'd be that dramatic of a difference. And the kits that I was finding out there were pretty pricey. Now, after a few years of freezing in that garage, I decided to go ahead and come up with a budget-friendly way to try to insulate that garage door to hopefully make it a little bit better in there. What I didn't expect was for a dramatic difference. I went from being in there with heaters going, still wearing sweats, trying to just get it warm enough to actually work in there, to turning the heater off, working in there in a tank top. And with what we're using, if you just look at the R value, it shouldn't make that dramatic of a difference. But I think I know why it did. So without further ado, let me show you what I used. All right, this is what I used. This is a 1-inch insulated foam panel made all out of recycled materials. Now, the first time I did this, I got the product from Home Depot. Where we live now, Lowe's is actually the closest hardware store, so I went there to pick some up. Unfortunately, they don't sell this product there. They sell a 1-inch foam, but they don't have this reflective material on it. And I think this reflective material makes the biggest difference. Now, like I said previously, this stuff only has an R value of about 4, so you wouldn't expect it to make that dramatic of a difference. I think the dramatic change actually comes from this reflective material that's on here. I think it's reflecting out the heat and reflecting out the cold. Now, I have nothing to back that up except for previous experience. Years ago, I helped a friend put radiant barrier in his attic, which is just spraying a reflective material on the ceiling. And before we were even a third of the way done through the attic, we could already tell a temperature change in there. So it's pretty disappointing to see Lowe's doesn't carry it with the reflective material on it. So we had to backtrack all the way to the old Home Depot to pick this up. Now, these 4x8 panels are only $19 each. Pretty cool, right? Now, when I originally started researching kits to insulate the garage door, one of them that I found Lowe's sells, it's just pieces of styrofoam with slits cut in it. Looks just like the styrofoam that, like, when you buy a TV, they put the form-fitted styrofoam around the television and the box. It looks like that with slits cut in it. It states on the package that it'll cover an 8 to 9 foot door, but if you actually figure up the measurements of what's in the package, it would only cover about an 8 foot wide, 6.5 foot tall door. So I guess they're assuming everybody that has a garage door has the glass in the top panel, so they don't need styrofoam for that, so it'll cover a 8 or 9 foot door. So you'd end up needing to buy 3 packages to be able to cover a 16x8 door at $70 a pop. It'd be well over $100. And all you got was styrofoam with slits cut in it. Now, I also ran into another kit that has like a fiberglass mesh in it with some pill and stick tape that you pull off around it and just stick it on the doors. And those kits run about $200. Now, even if I wanted to use one of those kits, it probably wouldn't work on the garage door I have here. In our previous house, we had a normal garage door. If you have a 2-car garage door, it's probably about the same thing. 16 foot wide, 8 foot tall. Here in the new garage, we actually have an oversized garage door, so it's 16 by 9. Instead of having 4 panels, I have 5 smaller panels. So if that kit's made for a normal size panel, of course it's not gonna fit on my panels that I have in my garage door. But again, I didn't even play with that idea since it was over $200. Now, another reason I was also adamant about getting this reflective material is it just looks better. I actually put it with this reflective material facing into the garage. I'm sure some people would say it would work better facing out so to reflect more of the heat, but it's also reflective on the other side. So if heat is coming through, it's still going to do its job and reflect out. But if you purchase a product that doesn't have this reflective material on it, what you're going to end up with is something that looks like that facing into your garage, which for a lot of y'all may not be a big deal. It's just a garage door. You really don't care. So for me, with this reflective material, it reflects light back into the garage. So for me, working and filming, it's a huge benefit having this reflective material on the wall. Now, for our project today, of course, you're going to need 4 of these 4x8 panels. Now, you're also going to need foil tape. You want to get 2.5 or 3-inch foil tape, but you want to get it for AC ducting. You don't want to get the hobby foil tape. The hobby foil tape doesn't adhere that great, and it's really thin. The AC foil tape, it's about $20 for a roll, but it's really thick, it's really heavy duty, and when it sticks, it's meant to stick for 20 years. So make sure you get the AC foil tape. Now you're gonna need something to cut the foam panel with. I suggest getting one of these. You can get a name brand one or you can get a knockoff one. I like to get the name brand one. They're only $5, but the difference between name brand and cheap, you see the blade it comes with? That is a heavy duty blade. Now here in a few minutes, I'll show you why you don't want to use just a regular razor knife and instead you want to use this. All right, you're also going to need some kind of straight edge. It doesn't have to be this particular product. You can use a board, anything that has a flat straight surface just so you can cut a straight line. And then tape measure and marker. That's it. As you can see, now if y'all see me stepping weird, just cover this real quick. I've got this live edge walnut down here. It's really heavy, I can't move it by myself, so it's gonna stay there while we do this video. So if you see me getting taller or shorter or stepping over, you know why. Now as you can see, I already started the garage door. I did this half. And just let me tell you, from standing right here to right here, I feel nothing but just the ambient room temperature here. Here, I can feel cold coming off the door. It's already making that big of a difference. Now I'm sure by seeing this side done already, you can get a gist of what we're gonna be doing. We're gonna be cutting foam, sticking it down in these channels to seal it up. But there's a few really important things we need to cover before you start cutting your foam. Now I'm sure as soon as you get home with your 4x8 panels, you're going to want to take a measurement and just cut out all the pieces at one time and then start sticking them up there. Don't do that. Don't do it. Now in my experience on most of the garage doors that I've ran into, the top panel is longer. I really don't know the reasoning behind it. I don't design garage doors. I just know in my experience that's what I've ran into on these. Now, like I said previously, in my 2-car garage, I just had an 8-foot garage door and it had 4 panels in it. Here we have a 9-foot opening garage door, so we have 5 panels. Now on this one, my top panel is wider than these 3 panels, and then my bottom panel is also wider. So if you got home with your panels and you came in here and you took a measurement, and you're like, okay, that's 17 inch by 48, and you start cutting out a bunch of 17 by 48s, they're gonna be too small to fit in here. Also, some of y'all won't have this piece here. You may have one just in the middle. So you can run a long 8-foot piece, or it'll probably be like 7 foot something, in between here, and some of y'all may even have more channels in between. Now you may go, okay, well this is 17 inch by 48, I'll at least cut these 6 out. Oh, don't do that either. So this from here to here is 48 inch. From here to here, 46 inch. So if we cut those panels, if we took a measurement here and we cut a bunch of 17 by 46 panels, we'd be too short here. So my point is, cut and measure for each panel. And you're gonna end up with some differences. These may all look the same. Now at first glance, all these openings look the same. But as you can see here, we have a pocket behind this one, and there's no pocket here. So like this garage door is not necessarily set up in a mirror image. So some of these sides are gonna have the pocket in here it can go through, and some of them are not. So what you're going to want to do is where your pocket is back behind here, that's where you want to take your measurement from. And then we don't have a pocket on this side, so we're going to measure from the inside of the pocket there to the flush edge here. That's going to give us just a hair over 46. We're going to cut it at 46 to have a little bit of room to play. As you can see here as well, we have a lip here and a lip here. The top lip is a lot deeper than the bottom lip, so keep that in mind when you're looking at your garage door. It may be different than mine. We have about a 1/4 inch pocket that our foam can set down in, but on the top we have 3/4 of an inch where our foam can set inside. Now if we took a measurement from as high up as we could shove our foam in the top and stick our foam in the bottom, we'd be at 17.5. Which in a perfect world, we would just cut our foam at 17.5 and we'd have a perfect fit in here. The problem you're going to run into is you need to be able to get the foam behind this lip and get the foam behind this lip and get the foam behind this lip. So if you make it the exact size that it is, it's going to be really tough getting it in there. So what I like to do, since I have a 3/4 inch gap here, I have a 1/4 inch gap here, I like to make my measurement just a 1/2 inch small. That's going to give us about a 1/4 inch of play to move it around, get it in there. Now luckily the 1 inch styrofoam is a lot more forgiving than the 2 inch. The 2 inch, you start bending and pushing on it too much, they're prone to cracking. This 1 inch is a lot more forgiving. You can really put some flex on it without it cracking on you, which is going to help us out with the install. So because we have a 3/4 inch gap here and a 1/4 inch gap here, of course we want to shove our foam in through the top first. And as you can see, we can't just push it straight in because we have a lip there. So we're going to have to manipulate it a little bit to get it in. Seems easy enough, right? Until you put in a full piece and you need to manipulate it and get it behind here. But I'll show you how to do that. It's really not that difficult. Again, the 1 inch foam is very forgiving. So another thing you want to keep in mind before you start cutting your foam is where your framing is at. Now on mine, My framing is here and here, that's a 48-inch gap. From there to there, it's like a 46-inch gap. Now my old garage door, I didn't have it at 48-inch. My framing was actually out here further. And I'll show you why that's important. Now the reason I say it's important to pay attention to where your framing's at on your garage door is, like on this garage door, we had 48-inch gaps or smaller. Well, this panel is 48 inches wide and 8 foot long. So for like this panel right here, that's 17 by 48. So I don't have to cut the 48 out. I just have to take a 17 measurement and cut it, and I'm at the perfect width. Now, if your framing on your garage door is wider than 48 inches, you may not want to cut your foam the same direction I'm cutting it. You may want to cut your foam this way to have less splits in it, if that makes sense. All right, now I'm going to show you how I cut this stuff. First, we want to take our measurement. With this panel having all these markings on here, you can pretty much take one measurement and just put your straight edge down there and make sure it stays the same behind all the markings, and you'll be fine. That way you're not having to go through, trace a long line, or go through and do a bunch of measurements. You can kind of visually see where the straight line's at. Now, you don't have to use a straight edge like this. If you got one, works great. A board, anything flat, long, and straight, you can use to do this. Just going to line it up on the marks. Now, this is where that razor comes in handy. We're just going to extend it all the way out, or you can set it down to the width of the styrofoam, whatever you're comfortable with. I'm just going to extend mine all the way out and cut at a real aggressive angle. Just try to keep the blade right up against your board and keep it as straight as possible. And we got a nice clean cut, not a bunch of styrofoam flying around, getting on everything. Now this is where you're going to notice the difference in using this razor blade over using a razor blade that's not really great for this. Because if you take a razor that's like this or something that's dull, what you're going to end up with is that. You're going to end up with a bunch of, and as you're cutting these big pieces, this stuff is going to be all over you. It's going to be all over your shop. So that's the difference between using a razor blade that can cut all the way through without dragging any of the styrofoam, making it ball up, and you end up with this stuff all over your shop. So you can see it all on here just from cutting that. Which we're just cutting this little piece a few inches. Imagine cutting a bunch of panels. If you had a bad razor blade, you'd end up with this white styrofoam everywhere, and it's static, sticks to everything, and it'll drive you insane. So a Husky razor blade costs $5, and it's going to pay for itself, me not having to clean up a ton of styrofoam. We're still going to end up with a little bit of styrofoam on stuff, it's just given, but it could be a whole lot worse with a bunch of it flying everywhere if we were using anything but this razor. I've even heard of people using like turkey cutting saws, the electric turkey cutting saws or whatever they're called, using that through there, but man, it's just, you're going to have styrofoam flying everywhere. Just razor blade, $5 razor blade. Alright, now all we have to do is install it. I said the 1 inch is a lot more forgiving. So you can kind of bend it, manipulate it into place. Like so. Shove it in behind that far. There we go. I may have cut that one just a little short while I was talking, but you get the idea. Now if you get it up in here and it's like this, you can't get this edge in because it needs to go behind this piece more, but it's so tight you can't get it to move. Just take your razor knife like this, stick it in straight, and use it to push it in. And then we can put a piece of metal tape if we're worried about that to seal it up, but that will give you where you can get it in there. Now that's the first method, that's the way I like doing it, but you can't always do it that way. If your garage door has a really wide lip on these panels on both sides, you're not going to be able to manipulate this enough to get it to curve and go in and get it in here. And just like you see this piece right here, this is going to get in our way. This is going to make it really difficult to install, so we're not even going to attempt to try to put it in as a solid piece. What we're going to do is we're going to cut our piece out just like we did, right here to the measurement it needs to be, and then we're just going to cut it right down the middle. Now I like pre-cutting it for the hole first and then cutting it down the middle this way for a few reasons. One, if our cut's not perfect, we're not going to have any air gaps in between it. So The imperfect cut's going to be on both sides, so it's still going to go back together like a puzzle piece. And then the other reason is I'm not having to take multiple measurements. I'm not having to go, okay, this is a 17-inch gap. I'm going to cut one piece 6 inch, and then I'm going to cut the other piece, the remaining, you know, and you don't have to mess with all that. You just cut your 17 by 48 and then cut it down the middle. Now, installing it with this method will also benefit you if you live somewhere that has really extreme cold climates and you want to make sure you fill in every single small gap you possibly can in this garage door. Installing it this way is going to be the only way to do it with having those lips. You've seen, for me to get this piece to fit in here, I had to take my measurement and knock it down a little bit so I could have some room to play in here. If you don't want to have that extra room in there and you want to fill it completely, then install it this way. And again, when you have these bars, this is going to be the best way to install it. I'm going to put my top piece in first. Right there. And then put my bottom piece in. That's it. And there we go. Like I said, if you want to fill the entire opening as much as you possibly can, take the exact measurement from inside here and inside here, cut your piece out, and then cut it right down the middle. Put your top piece in first, put your bottom piece in next, slide in, you're all good. Now, another option I have for you, if you're in extreme cold and you want to seal it up as much as you possibly can, you can get some spray foam like this. You see how we got this little bit of a gap down back in here? We can go through. Fill it completely with foam, expanding foam. This can's about empty. Now we want to put our panel in while this is still wet because it's going to start expanding and it's going to expand out to about an inch, inch and a half thick. The foam's also going to expand and fill in all the air and space behind that panel as well to keep it pushed in nice and tight. Now that's not a perfect example, again, because we cut that panel so I can manipulate it to get in. We didn't cut the panel to fill in every crevice that we possibly could, but you at least get the idea of how you could do it if you want to make sure you seal up every possible crevice you can, because where you live it gets crazy cold, or where your garage door's at has massive amounts of wind pushing against it. I can see lots of reasons somebody would want it more sealed up than what we're doing today. But for me here in Texas, I think going and spending the money buying all that spray foam is going to have diminishing returns, meaning I think I could spend a lot more money and spray foam all this, but I don't think we're going to see that much more benefit from doing it where I'm located. But again, if you live somewhere that gets extremely cold, that spray foam option may be the best route for you. All right, now let's say we have all of our foam panels in. Now we need to go and keep them all in place with this metal tape. This is going to help seal it up even more and keep everything from moving and keep some air from coming through. Now there's a couple ways you could do this. I like to go through and just do individual pieces for each block, but you could go through and just run long pieces all the way down and then take a razor blade and cut it at every spot there's a joint. Now if you miss a spot or it still sticks and you go to open your garage door, it may pull your foam apart. It could be a bad day. So I like to just do a panel at a time. Now in this one, I'm going to put metal tape over my cut spot so I can seal it all up. Now this is the reason you don't see me cutting every panel down the middle and making sure I have every gap filled in perfectly, because this is not as aesthetically pleasing as just having a panel on there. Again, a lot of people, it's just a garage door, they're not going to care, and if you need to fill in every gap, there's really no workaround with it. It's just going to be what it's going to be, but I prefer to not have it down there if I don't have to. And I just tear the foil and put it up here. If we wanted to even cleaner install, you could of course cut it with a razor. Now with that spray foam being in there, as it starts to dry and expand, it's probably going to push this panel out a little bit and give us a really nice snug fit. Now, after I have the entire door taped off, I like to take a squeegee and just go through and get all the wrinkles out of the tape and seal it up against that metal. As you can see, this metal has a texture in it, so it looks kind of wood grain. So to get it to seal up in there and get rid of those wrinkles, make it look a little nicer, we just go through and push that tape down all the way. Nice and sealed up. Again, we got this panel pushed back a little bit just because we pushed it into that foam, but it'll end up raising back out, being almost flush once that foam dries. Let me show you what I was talking about with that tape. This stuff, when I say it sticks, it sticks. I'm trying hard to get it to come back off. And that's on smooth metal. But like I said, it's made to seal up AC ducting and last years and years, so it should be perfectly fine on our garage door. All right, now I'm going to repeat that process on the entire door, and then I'll show you what it looks like when we're done.